You have people like Peter Thiel, going on tour talking about the Antichrist and all sorts of strange, arcane religious ideas having a major resurgence in this period. And Late Stage Babylon attempts to explain why this is happening and what it may mean for the future. Hi, my name's Angie and I am a content creator. I've also dabbled in journalism. I've written for publications like Newsweek, and now I am adding author to that list of accomplishments. Late Stage Babylon is really kind of a spiritual diagnosis of the current era, of political contention, of technological acceleration, and also of general kind of spiritual malaise. And I kind of wanted people to know, if they catch my drift on some of this stuff, that they're not imagining things. Things are getting very strange. The veil is definitely thinning, and certain archetypes are beginning to constellate in the collective unconscious. It kind of feels like the beginning of something, or even perhaps the end of something. We're kind of living through something uncanny at the moment. And despite the fact that we're in a world that's seemingly obsessed with data and technological progress, certain mystical ideas are starting to kind of flood back into the zeitgeist, and the arcane is kind of making its way through the cracks. There have been quite a few incidents over the last couple of years where celebrities, people like Russell Brand and Kat Von D, have like really conspicuously converted to Catholicism, for instance. And there's this sort of notion that, establishment religions are sort of this new countercultural, frontier. You also have, tech titans like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel publicly flirting with arcane ideas and funding occult research. You also have this massive kind of UAP push in government currently, and many establishment figures kind of trying to wrap their heads around the notion of non-human intelligence, which is something that could be incredibly threatening to the rationalist paradigm if found certain. I really saw his work as an intervention, really, into the modern Western psyche, since he lived through many of the sort of upheavals of the 20th century, from fascism to, the rise of communism, and also the rise of this sort of very rigid secular paradigm. And part of the reason I think Jung is so important is because his work was kind of an intervention into that. And he attempted to really point out a lot of the failures of this rigid rationalism, and many of the predictions he made about where rigid rationalism would take us and what would happen if it failed are coming true right now before our very eyes. So I really think that Jung is an incredibly important figure for this time. And in Late Stage Babylon, I attempt to take a lot of his kind of predictions about the future and a lot of his sort of assertions about the issues with the Western psyche and apply them very, very imminently to the current paradigm. I talk about the Jungian archetypes that are currently constellating in the collective unconscious. I explore Jung's idea of the Antichrist, which is an incredibly important symbol for this era, using Carl Jung's models in his famous work Ion, looking at other Christian mystics like Rudolf Steiner, even like Meister Eckhart. It's really about what I like to call the post-secular age. Late Stage Babylon is also kind of a work of eschatology as well. Eschatology is an area that I'm incredibly interested in from when I was a child, reading the Book of Revelations, to being an adult and reading Jung's Ion for the first time. And really kind of paying attention to his sort of speculations about the current age. I kind of fancy myself a bit of a modern Sibylline priestess or whatever. I'm really taking an eschatological look at our time to tackle the spiritual hunger that modern politics is sort of a facade for. Late Stage Babylon also attempts to tackle why rationalism is losing its grip on public consciousness. I also talk about the return of myth and ritual and the occult into the public sphere. So yeah, if this is something you're interested in, if you are interested in a very sort of critical look at all aspects of the political spectrum, if you're interested in eschatology, parapolitics, Late Stage Babylon is definitely the book for you. And I'm really, really excited to share it with the world.